I'm Carlton King, former Scotland Yard Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
My name is Carlton King, and welcome to the Black Spy Podcast, the show that shines a light on the world of secret intelligence, national security, and armed governmental personal protection operations, but actually focuses in on geopolitics. And what is that? That's basically everything and anything. But what you've got to understand is that the anything and everything, there are controlling factors which you probably don't see. And those controlling factors really decide so often what we think, what we do, what we get. Now, today, we're going to hit on a subject which I believe shows this massively. And this is the incident with Lucy Letby, who has now been found guilty of murdering X amount of children. Notice I use the word, well, she's found guilty on murdering seven, and further injuring others. But the reason why I'm saying that X amount is because I think she worked places before. People need to be aware of this. She worked places before. And subsequently, even after she was found or considered to probably have been killing children, the directors of the hospital in which she were working took her off the neonatal ward, and put her on another ward. So do you think she's only saying to herself, oh, I only want to kill babies, but I won't kill anybody else?
Well,
ladies and gentlemen,
here I'm going to jump in because you don't need to introduce me. Because as your podcast wife, many times during this trial, during the preamble to this trial, during the evidence, and let's face it, this has been going for 10 months. We've had many conversations. Many times I've just called you and I've just said, like, God, can we talk about this? Can we talk about this? And you've said, let's wait till it's gone to trial. Let's wait till it's gone to trial. But we've always had banter about this. And I think the overarching question really, and this is the reason why, even though we spoke about this on a previous podcast.
Yes, we have 2 podcasts, yeah.
It's why wasn't Lucy Letby stopped sooner?
Correct. And by the way, I should say we have got Dr. Rachel back in the house. I'm going to clap her in because she is fantastic. And this is a subject which she can probably help with. So, Dr. Rachel, thank you very much for coming on this particular podcast as well, regarding effectively NHS killings. Not just Lucy Letby. I'm talking killings in the NHS.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, for people to, and yourself amongst that, say, why was she not stopped sooner? When I'm sort of working with people and explaining how the brain works and how this feeds into sort of behaviour, one of the main things that I sort of talk about is something that we call schemas. And this is basically a blueprint for everything that goes on around you, certainly relationships, experiences, people that are around you. And one of the main things that we need to sort of remember is the schemas that society has, both for people we call nurses and what the profile of a nurse is, and also the schema that we have for women. And this goes to sort of when we look at, you know, the management and the people who should have been.
And just a quick sidebar in here, just jumping in, because obviously Lucy Letby's been attacked in prison today. So again, maybe
I didn't know that.
she had boiling water thrown at her. So maybe like there's another schema about murderers in prison.
Yeah.
Female murderers in prison.
Yeah, and this is, you know, what the brain does, because the brain is highly energy expensive. In order to not have to use as much energy, is that we like to put things into boxes. We like to put things into, oh, that's what that is, or this is what this is like, or this is how we experience this. So that we have this going on for everything that we encounter and everything that we come into contact with. And you also have to remember that schemas are introduced in society. So when you're talking, you know, about how people relate to other people, you know, there has been a lot in the past few years of sort of conflict between doctors and management within hospitals.
Yes.
And I think that very much you can see being played out with, you know, the information that we have about, you know, Lucy Letby in particular, but equally in other
many other cases.
Many other cases, there's this clear disconnect between you know, the respect that doctors are given by management, and you have to sort of see how that plays into it. So there's so many things going on here, and you have to look at how, you know, particularly female serial killers, because that's what she comes under now. She's a female serial killer, and you know, even that schema, female serial killer, what comes into your mind when I say those three words? What kind of person comes into your mind?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Your schema.
I mean,
if you have to name it, right, Myra Hindley.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, see, now this is the problem. This is the problem, because when I saw the program, which was partially good but partially bad, Panorama, which did an hour long on Lucy Letby, the reporter, and this is what two things angered me. One, the reporter said, when I look at Lucy Letby, listen to this now. When I look at Lucy Letby, what I don't see is a killer, is a serial killer. Mm. I don't know what a serial killer is, but when I look at Lucy Letby, I don't see it. What does she mean by that?
Yeah.
Well, I would take this even deeper.
What does a serial killer look like?
But I'm going to take this even deeper, because there was a really, really good article in the Independent, right? Where like one of the standouts for me, right, about that Panorama documentary, right, was her mate, right, her mate Dawn.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Dawn, lovely Dawn, right, mm-hmm. who said she would stand by Lucy till the ends of the earth, right? There was a really interesting article in the Independent, which I don't entirely agree with, but it was interesting, saying, are girls conditioned to sort of be BFFs forever? You know, because she said, like Dawn said in the, you know, she said all her friends group will stand by her until the point when she says that she's guilty. Well, okay, she didn't have to say she was guilty because she didn't show up, you know, because we said she was guilty, and that's going to take us on to our next point. But the point is, we spoke, Carlton, I was unaware of all the Post-it notes. Mm-hmm. And all the sort of teddy bears and all the infantilism, I suppose, because it is that, isn't it? It's infantilism. Mm-hmm. She had, you know, cats that she used to write. She used to write birthday cards to herself from her cats. Mm-hmm. You know, and she had this whole, you know, thing going on with the, you know, with the diary and with her Pooh Bear and her piglet and all that sort of stuff. But I sort of felt like Dawn seemed like a responsible person that maybe you might go out on a night out with. But I sort of felt like what she was saying was slightly missing. Even when you look at Lucy Letby's bedroom as a woman, the kind of words that Dawn was using about her, like, you know, oh, she's the softest, generous, she's super fun. Oh, she loves going out for salsa. She loves cocktails. She loves going out, blah, blah. You know, like, she's super fun. She's really kind. She always looks after her mates, like, blah, blah, blah. that's not the pic. I mean, I know we're all victims of unconscious bias.
Correct.
If I look at a 30-year-old's bedroom and they've got stuffed animals on their beds and letters from their cat and obviously post-it notes like admitting to murder, but do you know what I mean? But I just feel like at what point did the friends drop the ball?
You see, the thing is this, what I'd say.
No, I'm asking this to Dr. Rachel, not you. Sorry, I'm being your wife here. I'm asking this question to Dr. Rachel. At what point do you think the friends dropped the ball?
Well, her bedroom could be described as eccentric.
Exactly.
And that's acceptable, particularly in the UK. You know, the British pride themselves on having eccentricity. And, you know, the thing that you've got to realise as well is that she may have been kind, she may have been fun with her friends, but that doesn't negate the fact that she could also be a female serial killer of babies.
Correct.
You know, the two, they're not mutually exclusive. So
they're not mutually exclusive. So that leads me on to my bigger point, really. That totally segues into the bigger point that we were actually going to talk about, which is basically why the conversation kind of came through last night about the plan to force offenders into the doctor's sentencing because she refused to be there for her sentencing. First thing that I said to Carlton, before we even vented our own opinions about the whys and wherefores and rights and wrongs and all of it, was to understand what the psychological impact either way would be.
Well, the psychological impact on Lucy Letby is that's a control mechanism, isn't it? She's exercising control, and you know, knowing that this will cause distress, and she's also exercising control of not having to even confront how she's been found guilty. You know, there might be an element to her that actually is in denial. She got away with it for so long. You know, she might have convinced herself that she didn't do that, even if she did do that. So, but for me, when I heard about, you know, her not wanting to go to you know, the sentencing, it was the same as, you know, Ian Brady not disclosing where the final grave was and having that as a control mechanism all those years, and people being taken in by that.
I know Carlton's got a lot to say about this and sort of empirical evidence, but what I just wanted to say first of all was I was sort of in a bit of a bubble about this when I first sort of heard the news about it. I was actually in a bit of a bubble, and I scanned all the news and I sort of took on board all the news, and there were a few quite interesting contra arguments. So, for example, the distress that a serial killer might cause to families by having to appear, and there are a few mentions in the media where they sort of called it a circus or a theatre. Yeah. And I do think that there are serial killers who are sort of show people, I suppose. They see themselves as show people, and I suppose being there at that final stand is that last opportunity to perform, right? But is that actually more distressing for the victims?
Right, Lucy Letby. I'm coming in, guys. Lucy Letby clearly isn't one of these people that is a show stander or whatever like that. What you've got to realise is there's nothing stopping there being an appeal. Nothing at all. So the last thing that Lucy Letby is going to do, if she's innocent, let's say that, right? Because this is the point. In our system, it says beyond all reasonable doubt. Okay? Not reasonable doubt, not just before it, but beyond it. Right? There is nothing there that is beyond all reasonable doubt that says she's killed him. Right? If you really want to look at it that way, nothing says that's beyond all reasonable. So I can cover each angle what she's done, and I could say, Yeah, so she's written in her magazine, "Oh, I'm the killer of them." She could have turned around and said, "You know why I'm the killer? Because I didn't nurse them properly." Right? Or, and you could go on and on with everything that she's done. Yeah, I'm a little bit eccentric. That's what I'm like. I like my cats. I'm a lonely person, so I've never had anything, blah, blah, blah. That's in fact why I got so tied to the children, because I'm lonely and I treat them like my cats. You know, you can go on and put all reasons for it. And to be fair, if she'd have had, you know, a super duper lawyer, maybe she'd have got off.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what you've got to look at, number one. I believe she's guilty. You know, one of the reasons why I'm believing she's guilty is because, you know, more than anything, one of the greatest things that show me that is two factors. One is if I'm believing the doctor who came in, saw a baby struggling for life, and Lucy Letby standing there watching it.
Yeah.
Lucy Letby never denied that didn't happen. What she said was, oh, it had just happened. But even though it had just happened, you've already had, by that time, 4 or 5 children already died, babies already died. Surely your reactive aspect would have been, let's jump straight in, let's get something done, call the crash.
Let's raise the alarm.
Right?
Yeah.
That would be straight in, right? So that's what you'd have been. But no, she says, oh, I'm looking, just making sure. Well, that's your problem. If that was number one and it's a delayed reaction, you didn't know what to do, you didn't know how to deal with it. No. She did, because she's the only person, that's the beauty of it, who's been on all 25 of the cases, was on duty at the same time. The only person, nobody else. There were people who'd been there once, there's people who'd been there 3 times. There's one person who'd even been there 7 times. Right? But on all of the people who died or had a problem, she was the only person who'd been there on all 25. That is beyond coincidence. Just 1 second. Let me step further. So that's that. So that's Lucy Letby being there and a murderer. Now, if you're talking about bringing her into a cell, bringing her into court, you have to remember, and this is what people never do. Politicians, I'm going to say it again, politicians, and I'm talking loud, are the most duplicitous people in the world, right? Politicians are all now saying, yeah, drag Lucy Letby into court, nasty woman, let her stand there, let all these people like that be seen in a court. Right, I'll tell you what will happen. The one time somebody says, what they did to that woman when they dragged her in a court looked terrible, or they injured her, the politician will be the first person to turn around and say, that was disgusting of that prison officer. So if I'm a prison officer and you're telling me to drag a woman into court or a man, I'm saying no, because I know you're not going to stand to me as and when anything happens, and the mood of the people change for whatever reason. Doesn't matter what it is. I'll give you a fine example of this. This is what happened. It's a fact. It happened. I was with an ex-prime minister. Okay, that ex-prime minister. We had the G7 in the United Kingdom. We policed it superbly. Okay, and that ex-prime minister, whom I knew very well and was looking after in terms of protection, he said to me, he said, Carlton, what I want you to do is I want you to tell the commissioner what a fantastic job the Met have done. Only the British police could have done this job. When I go to all these other G7s, this and that happens, police are firing water cannon, they're doing this. The way the British police did it was fantastic, not a problem. I want you to inform the commissioner of it. I said, yeah, of course I will do. Right? What happened, though, then, is that on that same day, a taxi driver, you probably remember him, wanted to come through police lines, right? And one of the PCs, police constable there, pushed the taxi driver back. Pushed him back. That's all he did. Didn't club him down, didn't do anything. He pushed him back. This taxi driver fell over, had a heart attack and died, right? The very next day, when this ex-prime minister heard, he said, disgusting. Right? So from the best in the world, all of a sudden, disgusting, heavy-handedness, heavy-handed tactics, blah, 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 blah. So believe me, do not do what politicians want you to do. They're only doing it for what they can get out of it on that particular day. What happens day after?
Look, let's just play devil's advocate here because I have to, right? Right.
Don't play it.
When you look at what. Well, I'm not playing devil's advocate, really. I'm doing what I've learned from you in terms of assessing a crime.
Correct.
Right? So we look at the history, we look at the accused, right? But we also look at the other options, right? So for argument's sake, what if she just was badly educated in terms of how to deal with babies? What if she's just stupid? What if the nursing training that she'd had told her to just inject them with insulin if they started to squeak?
She didn't say that, did she?
Yeah, then surely she would have said that.
Correct. She did say that.
Well, surely she would have. But what I'm saying is, like, you know,
she didn't say that.
She didn't say that. I'm just. That is conjecture. That's conjecture. But you know, if the picture, if the history, you know, if it of her friends and her social situation and her and all the rest of it is all this like warm and fuzzy glow, you know, what if her training was also a warm and fuzzy glow?
And this is what leads us back to Dr. Rachel. I'm going to ask her on this one. Right. On that same programme, there was a DCI. She happened to be a female. I don't know if that counts. I probably do think it counts. Right? She's a DCI and she's running the case. Okay? I'm sure she did a great job on the case. But she said two things that worried me. She's in Cheshire Police. Okay, we know it's not the most dastardly of crime-ridden areas. Right? But the point is...
come on, Hollyoaks.
Very true. As a police officer, right, what you don't think or should never be thinking is, because these were her words, when we were first told about it, she said I was first told about it, I thought, no, this can't be the case. It cannot be that this woman has murdered children, X amount of children.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, where have you been? What job are you in?
Yeah.
Right? Dastardly things happen every day and nasty people commit crimes.
Yeah.
It doesn't need... You should always be open to the fact that crime can be committed.
Yeah.
She then turned around and said, we were horrified, shocked, those were words, shocked that she had done this when we finally got... Why are you shocked? This happens all the time. The first thing I would have done if I had that case, I know I was looking in a different area, but the first thing I would have done straight away, I would have said to him, am I analyst? Okay, analyst, find out in the last 25 years how many such crimes have been committed. We did that, didn't we, Fergus? And we found out that probably 1,000 murders have been committed by people in the NHS.
Yeah.
There are 1,000 murders committed in the NHS within the particular trust that Lucy Letby worked in. Though there were 4.
Right, exactly.
Right. And then she came along and but. Right.
No, those 4 people only died. What I'm saying is, we're talking about murders. The DCI's mind has to be open to murder because she's on the murder squad. So you've got to think murder. You see what I'm saying? Rachel, but like, look, I'm playing devil's advocate because you know, and I hope the audience don't judge me for playing devil's advocate. I just am, right? But let's say, what if the oxygen machine wasn't working properly, or what if the insulin wasn't at the right dose, or what if, like, you know, blah blah blah. There could have been some medical errors as well. And that's what the DCI has to find out. That's what the DCI has to get experts to look into, which they did.
But Carlton, going back to what you sent me last night, like you know, for your listeners' point of view, Carlton and I do quite often aggressively message each other when we have important things to talk about. But anyway, what I was going to say is, you know, like, in terms of the actual investigation, in terms of the whole picture of the investigation, right, they should, whoever was capturing the, you know, the medical notes, who was on duty, the interviews and all the rest of it, should they not also have been capturing who did the dosage, what, you know?
Yeah, they will have done. They will have done. I've no doubt they have. I've no doubt they've done all. But I'm not doubting the investigation.
But the thing is, do you have no doubt they have?
I've no doubt.
I have every doubt that they have.
I've got no doubt about that. I've got no doubt because that's how they've come together with all the info. That's not the point. My original point was, and this is what I want Dr. Rachel to answer, is why that chief doesn't think automatically that it can be murder.
Well,
Why does that officer have to think it's not? That's the point.
Well, and this goes right back to the schemers thing, and and this is a broader, wider issue with society now, and that people are not thinking. Correct. She used very emotive language, and I'm seeing this more and more often with the different police divisions, when you're having police officers talking, they're talking in very much emotional, opinionated language. And the police should not be having any emotion or opinions. Their job is to gather evidence.
Correct.
That's their job, not to have an opinion on it, not to bring emotion into it. Their job is to gather evidence to the best of their ability, and then it gets sent to CPS, and CPS decide whether there's enough evidence to charge or not. There should be no emotionality from any police officer in any kind of criminal investigation.
Correct. Totally with you.
Yeah.
Totally with you. So your open mind must say to you straight away, listen, this can be a murder. No, don't be wrong. It didn't impede them, but it's just her language.
Yeah.
And she's saying, because I think she wants, and this is what I was thinking, tell me if I'm wrong, I was thinking she was trying to appeal to the audience and show, aren't I a nice police officer who is shocked by all this, what's gone on?
Yeah.
And actually, by the time you're a DCI, I was a DI, by the time you're there, you've seen so much that, frankly, are you shocked? Yeah. You're not really shocked.
This is a really interesting thing, because if that's what her intention was, then she's not going to then generate much trust and respect for the police authority from the general public. Because the general public don't want a caring police officer. They want a police officer who they know is going to protect them, is going to keep them from harm, is actually going to use the law to the best of their ability to ensure that they're not going to fall to any or come to any harm. And I think this is the problem, is that for her to say that, and this goes back to the schema, she had a vision of what a killer should look like. Yes. And Lucy Letby didn't look like that. Yes. And this when you speak to research psychologists who research serial killers in particular, they say when they do their training, when they work with law enforcement agencies, when they work with people who are making the call to do that, they say never make the assumption that anybody could not be a murderer.
Correct.
Always make the assumption that anybody could be a murderer.
I mean, we got loads of comments on this when we did the episode about Madeleine McCann. But this is kind of the point we made, isn't it, Carson? The perception of the murderer don't rule out.
Correct.
Yeah. And you also have to think as well, I'm taking this case in particular, using this case, by the time that the evidence came to go to, there was a lot of evidence for them to sift through, and there should have been an immediate assumption that something was not quite right here. And therefore, for me, it shows that there isn't, from a neuroscientific perspective, taking, everything out of it, just being, scientific here, in that it shows a severe lack of flexibility and plasticity in the brain of that police officer, that she couldn't comprehend how this could have happened and how shocked and horrified she was. That to me is an issue. And the very fact that she said that, if I was in charge of her, I would be having her in and actually doing some sort of psychometric testing to see if she was up to the job.
Yeah, well, I can't call her down for a job because it seems that. But yes, I think you're right, insofar as I think, as a police officer, you have to be open. Yes. You have to think openly. Dastardly things happen. Yeah. That's your job, is to deal with the dastardly people. That's what it's about, right? Yeah. So you need to know. But probably the problem is, you were talking about training before, Fergus. Yeah. The training now is for you to be some sort of social worker or whatever. They've got social workers. That's not what you're there for. Yeah. You're there to look at crime and to deal with it, or issues that come off that, whatever the state says a crime is. Now, the other issue, which I've got to say, is the doctors on that looked absolutely, one of them, the primary doctor, looked shocked. But if you think that children have been murdered, it's not sufficient for you just to write to the management, and for the management to turn you down and say, no, we don't want you to look at that, and you to say, okay, fair enough. That's not the way it works. Yeah. If you think about this now, if we look at both of the two police officers who are now highlighted, in fact, were highlighted today. This is why I just want to mention it. We're highlighted today, and they say, oh, we've got to look at trying to sack police a lot easier for gross negligence, etc., etc., etc. Right. So what they're trying to say is, we're going to use these two cases of officers. One is Cummins, who murdered a woman off duty, and the other one is this guy who had women who lived in with him, and then subsequently it's been said that he raped the women, he was found to have raped them, who lived in with him, because he'd get women off Tinder, and they'd come and then they'd live with them for X amount of months, and then he'd rape them or whatever. From the way I understand the case, there may be more to it, but that's what I'm understanding. Both of them were off duty. Now, one of the guys, the fella from the Tinder, apparently in the canteen, they called him the rapist, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's because of how he looked at women or whatever. That's what I understand it from. Now, the point of that is that there's been no cases come to the station saying this guy has raped somebody. There's been no cases where people have even suggested that he's raped anybody, right? None of them. It's just that they've looked at him and assessed him as in that way. But that's not sufficient to do somebody in. But what was said all the time was by politicians, you see, even in the canteen they called him rapist and the police did nothing. Well, there's no evidence there.
Yeah.
Now, an MP in Strangers, which if you don't know, that's the bar they have in House of Commons, went round groping women and men, by the way. He was known as the groper, right? What politician was standing there saying, oh, well, we should have done something? He was known as a groper, right? He was actually doing groping in the bar, not doing it at his home after being on Tinder that you don't know about. He was actually there in the bar doing it. And people were told, oh, watch him, he's a dodgy fella, right? So the MPs are saying to police, you've got to deal with this and you should have dealt with him on suspicion alone, right, that somebody's called him the rapist. Lucy Letby has been there at 4 or 5 deaths of children, which never happens, right? And doctors even actually seen her not do anything, and the doctors do nothing other than write it to their senior management. And when their senior management say, oh, that's wrong, even by the time 6 had died, and they went to the senior management and sent a letter to them. The senior management wrote a letter and said, no more emails, right? This is on the panorama thing, and they admit this is the case. No more emails, and then they are told to write a letter to Lucy Letby
to apologise. Yeah.
To apologise.
Yeah.
Right. So, but nobody's talking about that. About doctors doing that. That's okay. Nobody's saying let's sack doctors when we see they're not doing anything. So why have these doctors not gone to the police and said, listen, we think babies are being killed?
It's a cultural thing, isn't it? That they think they've discharged their responsibility by bringing it to the attention of the people who are meant to be in charge of investigations.
But they're not, are they? They're just managers. Yeah. They're just managers.
Exactly. And this is what I say all the time is that maybe everybody doesn't remember that if you are over 18, you have a duty to safeguard children.
Exactly.
And if you don't safeguard children, theoretically, you could be held accountable for it.
Exactly.
How much that happens, I don't know. This is something that I say all the time. I call all things out that I think are neglectful or abusive to children.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right.
Because we have a duty to safeguard the vulnerable, and I think people forget that. These
doctors let that happen and didn't do anything other than report it. And then when the reports went through, they didn't do the next step further. Because, report to your managers. When the managers start saying, oh, well, we'll look at this. No, that should be, sorry, no, we need to go to the police on this. And we're going. Yeah. But you see, where are the demonstrations? When these cops had it, there were massive demonstrations. Were the demonstrations against the NHS?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Well, I don't know. People probably think that they still should be clapping on a Thursday night and hitting pots and pans because obviously we worship at the seat of the NHS, and this kind of thing, it really, it's that kind of culture is, obviously this is the extreme end of it where we've had terrible tragedies caused by a person who should have been stopped well before they were, but this culture of dehumanization and not valuing life is endemic within the NHS. And I say it all the time in that we
but I'm going to ask a difficult question here, right? Is the new government proposed policy about the victim needing to be there to kind of hear their results essentially the same? Like, is this a sort of circle of life about the endemic? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I suppose from my perspective, from a psychological perspective, if you said to the families of these, these poor babies, do you want do you want to have the defendant here? And they said, yeah. What I'm
saying is, in terms of the punishment.
I don't think, in terms of punishment, I don't think it makes any difference.
Well, exactly. So that's kind of where I'm going. Like,
yeah.
As in, right? Should if for argument's sake, Lucy Letby had said, I accept my punishment, but I don't need to go to court. To see those faces and to hear my judgment. I accept that I'm guilty and I accept my punishment. Should she have to?
Well, she can't. They can't force her.
Yeah.
And this is
because apparently they can now, because there's not going to be now a 2-year court add-on if you don't.
Well, how are you going to do that?
Well, apparently that's how
they're going to put the only way I can see them doing that is by putting.
Apparently that is now what's going to happen. Is that?
The only way I can see that happening is putting some.
It's going to happen.
Putting some camera in the cell so they can see, and they can put a camera in the cell, and then the person. But you're not. I'm telling you now, a prison officer that drags people to the court is putting themselves on the line.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that now. Putting themselves on the line.
Yeah.
Because those same politicians that are doing this as a knee-jerk because they hear the public want it and it's coming up to an election, those same politicians will be the same ones who will, as soon as somebody complains in the other direction, will jump away and say it's heavy-handed. Because that's what they're like. So you'd be crazy to do that. I'm telling you now, crazy.
Yeah, and they wouldn't do it anyway. This is like the one of these things. It's like the wheels of justice grind very slowly, and there'll be all sorts. They'll put it out to consultation, and then like Carlton was saying, it's like, can you force a prison officer to drag somebody unwillingly? All of these different dimensions, and at the end of the day, it's like, how you have to look at things. Nothing's ever going to make anything better for the families of the victims, or it's nothing ever is. And even if it's, I want to look them in the face or anything like that, that's not going to make them feel better. I think what would make the general public feel better is knowing that we have organisations and institutions that actually value life and do what they should be doing. And that there's proper policy and proper strategy that actually minimises this kind of environment where things like this can go on.
Fergus, let me ask you a question, and then hopefully Dr. Rachel will come through to Fergus. Why is it that your ex-profession, chooses only to hit on a particular body of individuals? That's the police. And by the way, I blame the police management, who are weak, and maybe you can speak about that, Dr. Rachel, who are absolutely and totally weak, who do not defend their people, because what you'll find is that they are instigating a negative culture. But when it's the NHS, let me just read NHS for you. Beverly Allett killed 4 infants. We don't know how many other infants that she's going to pop, because she was injecting them with air. So that could have happened to a whole load of others, right? So that's Beverly Allett, right? Then you had on top of that, you had not looking at Lucy Letby, we had Colin Campbell murdered 10. Nurse Benjamin Geen murdered 2 patients in Oxford. These are all the United Kingdom. And various others who didn't die. Then we had Vitriano Chow, who murdered 2 and 20 on others badly injured. Dr. Howell Shipman, as we know, was done for 250, but people say it's 500 and 600, but people won't let them exhume their bodies, right? Because he's a doctor, nobody ever suspected him. We've got surgeons who write their names on people's breasts. We've got surgeons that chop women's breasts off just to make more money, etc., etc., etc. This thing's going on all the time. I see not a single demonstration.
Yeah.
I see your media, Fergus. Answer me the question.
So what about a bit of? I know we throw these questions back at each other, but what about a bit of joined up thinking, Carson? Right. So if I were to play devil's advocate across all of those, what if that person was told in medical school that a great way to avoid breast cancer would be to chop their breast off?
Great, not a problem. But he's not, is it? But he's not, is he? But
we're not we're not doing a deep dive into that.
No, but we're not, are we? This is the point.
Exactly, we're not, and nobody is.
No, but what I'm saying is,
it's not our responsibility as a podcast. But what all I was going to say is, right, if we went back to the previous medical murder episodes.
Fergus, the ghost of your profession, why is it not saying more? That's what I want to know. Why is your profession not saying more?
Well, because you know why. No,
don't. Explain to me.
Well, essentially because headlines are, inflammatory.
Yeah.
Right, so you can't get an inflammatory headline from that. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, all I'm saying is that like, look, for something, even to talk about Lucy Letby and her teddy bears right now, if I were going to submit an article to The Guardian, I would have to go through the lawyers.
Right, so, but why do you not have to go through the lawyers when it's a police officer then?
I do have to.
Yeah, but they talk a whole load of rubbish and print every article and say a whole load of things that doesn't seem to matter. What I'm saying is, it seems as though there is an untouchable asset, which is the NHS, and they don't want to touch it. Dr. Rachel, what do you think?
I completely agree. And when you are a victim within the NHS of malpractice or anything like that, and I'm speaking from both a personal and professional perspective, is that you are bullied. You are you literally face panels of people when you're at your most vulnerable. They have every excuse under the sun. They bring out the lawyers, and they have a very defensive practice without, and this is not just from the management perspective. It goes right the way down the ranks. It really does, And I think until we tackle that culture, until we tackle this, worshipping at the seat of the NHS and actually, face facts is that quite a lot of people have been damaged by the NHS and say, we want to improve it, and you stop having that culture where you attack people who have been treated badly by the NHS. Things are never going to change, and it's. To me, I saw an article yesterday where it says by 2050, 1 in 11 people will be working for the NHS. One, I find that absolutely disgraceful that we're going to have that many sick people that will need that. And two, it's like, everybody will become part of that, complicit in this kind of culture. And it's what we should be working against, not for.
I mean, look, I always put the disclaimer out here that, I love doctors, I love nurses, they are doing good as a general rule. That's not my argument. My argument is that when they are not doing good, surely they should not be treated different than others who are when they're not doing good. My argument is treat people all the same, but the point is it isn't. They seem to get away with it. How can these senior managers in Chester Hospital, right, how can these people not be now in prison? Because they knew something was going on. They were told it.
Yeah.
And they hid it because it wasn't good for the culture of the hospital.
Yeah. This is, everybody hides behind everybody. Like I saw the exec, the directors, we knew nothing of this. And it's like, for God's sake, somebody have accountability or take responsibility. Because if you knew nothing of this, then why did you know nothing of this? What, why, when so many babies died in such a short space of time, why were you not told about this? For me, the accountability and nobody taking responsibility, that's the problem here. And it goes back to what we're saying about the doctors. Why were they not accountable for not having that safeguarding?
Just on a personal level, just on a completely personal level, Rich and I've got we've got a family friend who was pregnant with twins, and she lost one of the twins and only one of them was born, and the protocol that you have to go through to deliver, bury and sort of register the child is a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a lot that, thank God, I've never had to go through, but it's a lot. And
it's not very humane, is it?
But there's a lot of support on all of those levels for those people that have to, unfortunately, go through that. So why is that level of support not there when that child is gasping for breath?
I think you get back to the schema thing again. It's about people's blueprint on this is how you behave in this situation, and this is how you behave in that situation. It's all it's all to do with that. All the time.
Yeah, I think we could go on for ever and a day, and it wouldn't be negative for us to do so. So what I think we will do at some stage is revisit this. Not necessarily this particular conversation, but the conversation around responsibility of senior managements within systems, be that government, because the other one that gets away with everything it does is government. They do things that are absolutely dastardly, and nobody is challenging these people.
Yeah.
So I think we need to look at this. All three of us. We'll bring you on, Rachel, for your your psychological profile thereof, and we can look at this, because I think that we are, and this is what I think what the NHS is in closing up, and you guys can close after me. I think what it is in the NHS, we're so grateful for what they do. Because first and foremost, we've been told that we're getting everything for free, which we're not. We pay for it in our taxes, and it's free at the point of treatment, but actually you're paying for it all for your life. So that's the first thing. But it's a great system. Don't get me wrong; it's a goodish system. The second thing is, I think we suffer from white coat syndrome. Somebody that comes in a white coat and they tell us X, Y, and Z, we think, oh, yeah, they've got to know what they're talking about. So let's take that. So I think that's another problem for us. And we don't wish to show that we are in some way, shape or means not grateful for their capacity. So I think that is where we have to separate gratefulness in the general circumstance and accountability as and when it's required. That should be in every role.
Yeah, well, we just need to think more. We need to have more critical thinking.
Very true.
Yeah.
Said much simpler.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Rachel. Fergus, I'm going to leave you the last words.
Well, we need to think more, but also I would say that we use some quite scary words in this conversation.
True.
We also, reference the NHS in some sort of quite negative ways.
True that.
I said when we first started talking about all of this, I said, my babies were delivered brilliantly by NHS nurses, and I don't want to belittle that in any
Absolutely.
way. But I do feel more and more that what the NHS are lacking is upskilling and resources, and if anybody is in that situation and would like to come on the podcast and talk to us about it,
yeah, absolutely.
Please just get in touch. Please get in touch. LinkedIn is the easiest way to get in touch with us.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, again, and you said it there, it's like in days gone by saying something negative against the royal family. You know, you couldn't say it because somehow you'd be unpatriotic, and obviously in the old days you might even get locked up. So the thing is, this is what the NHS is like, but I don't think that helps it.
No.
I think when it doesn't do right, I think we need to take it with the same hammer and as we do for others organisations, or should do for organisations, and challenge them. I would just say it this way: in the same way as we challenge the police. Exactly the same challenge should be made on them. Shouldn't be any different.
Yeah, agreed.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And hopefully we will hear from you again, or you'll hear from us again next week.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
For almost a quarter of a century, I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.